The massive chamber of the Galactic Council stretched high into darkness above. Hundreds of seats, filled with strange beings from across the galaxy. Some had tentacles instead of arms, others floated in glass tanks filled with purple gas. A few looked almost human but with extra eyes or different colored skin. Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat in the small human section near the back. She wore her best blue uniform with the Earth symbol on her chest. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and she held her electronic notebook ready. The humans had been part of this council for only 3 years. Most of the other species had been here for hundreds or thousands of years. Today they were talking about a war between two alien groups. The Zephyrian Empire wanted to take over some planets that belonged to the Crystalline Confederation. Both sides had big armies and powerful weapons. They had been fighting for months. Elena listened as different aliens stood up to speak. Their voices came through her translator device as clear English. But she could hear the strange sounds they really made. Clicks, whistles, deep rumbles, and high singing noises filled the air. A tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms stood up. This was Chancellor Vorth from the Altarian hegemony. His people were one of the oldest and most powerful groups in the council. When he spoke, others listened. "We must decide if we should send peacekeepers," Chancellor Vorth said. His voice sounded smooth and confident through the translator. This war between the Zephyrians and Crystallines could spread to other systems. An alien that looked like a giant spider with crystals growing from its back clicked loudly. "The Zephyrians will not listen to reason. They want those mining worlds, no matter what we say. Then we must show them our strength," said another voice. This came from something that looked like a floating jellyfish made of metal. "Send the fleet. Make them stop fighting." More voices joined in. Some agreed with sending peacekeepers. Others said the council should stay out of it. The debate went on for over an hour. Elena took notes, but said nothing. The human delegation was told to observe and learn, not to speak unless asked directly. Finally, Chancellor Vorth raised all 4 of his arms for silence. The chamber grew quiet. He looked around at the different alien faces. Then his eyes stopped on the human section. "Perhaps we should ask our newest members for their thoughts," he said. A smile appeared on his thin blue lips, but it was not a kind smile. "Though I suspect they will choose not to get involved, as they always do." Elena felt her stomach tighten. She had been afraid this might happen. Some of the council members did not take humans seriously. Chancellor Vorth continued talking, his voice growing louder. "After all, everyone in the galaxy knows that humans fear war. It is quite interesting. Really, a species that evolved beyond such primitive behavior." Sounds of agreement came from around the chamber. Clicking, chirping, and musical notes that meant "yes" in dozens of different languages. Elena saw many alien heads nodding or doing whatever their species did to show they agreed. "Very refreshing," added the crystal spider. "Most young species are too eager to fight. Humans learned wisdom early." "Indeed," said the metal jellyfish. "They solve their problems with words instead of weapons." How civilized. Elena's hands began to shake. She gripped her stylus pen so hard her knuckles turned white. Her face stayed calm, but inside she felt a burning anger growing. These aliens had no idea what they were talking about. No idea at all. Chancellor Vorth was still speaking. "Yes, it is good to have a peaceful species in our council. Perhaps they can teach the rest of us about avoiding violence." More sounds of agreement filled the chamber. Elena looked around at the alien faces. They all seemed so sure of themselves, so confident that they understood humans. She thought about her grandfather, who had lost his leg fighting on Mars during the colonial wars. She thought about her brother, who served on a warship protecting the outer colonies. She thought about the military academies on Earth, where young humans learned the art of war that had been practiced for thousands of years. These aliens thought humans were afraid of fighting. They thought humans were weak. Elena activated her communication device with trembling fingers. She needed to send a message to Earth immediately. This could not wait for the normal diplomatic channels. "Situation requires immediate presidential response," she typed quickly. They have crossed a line. The message would take several hours to reach Earth through the quantum communication network. But Elena knew President Sarah Chen would want to know about this right away. Chancellor Vorth was wrapping up his speech. So we are all in agreement? We will send a peaceful negotiation team to try to stop this war. And perhaps our human friends can advise them on avoiding violence. Elena stood up slowly. Every alien eye in the chamber turned to look at her. Her voice was steady when she spoke, but those who knew humans well might have heard the dangerous edge in it. Thank you for your consideration, Chancellor Vorth, she said. I will pass your comments along to my government. Excellent, Chancellor Vorth replied. I am sure they will appreciate our understanding of their peaceful nature. Elena sat back down and continued typing her message to Earth. She added more details about exactly what had been said and who had said it. President Chen needed to know everything. Around her, the council continued their debate about the war between the Zephyrians and Crystallines. But Elena was no longer listening. She was thinking about what would happen when Earth received her message. The aliens in this chamber thought they knew humans. They thought humans were afraid of war. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Elena finished her message and sent it out into space, racing toward Earth at the speed of light. Then she sat back and waited. President Sarah Chen was not the kind of person who let insults to humanity go unanswered. The Galactic Council was about to get an education. President Sarah Chen sat behind her large wooden desk in the Oval Office. The morning sun came through the tall windows, making patterns on the floor. She was reading reports from different parts of human space when her emergency communication device started flashing red. The device only flashed red for the most important messages: war declarations, natural disasters, first contact with new alien species. President Chen pressed the button and read Elena's message from the Galactic Council. Her face grew dark as she read each word. By the time she finished, her jaw was clenched tight. She pressed another button on her desk. Get me General Martinez and Admiral Thompson. Now. Within minutes, both military leaders walked into the office. General Roberto Martinez was a big man with gray hair and scars on his face from the Titan Liberation War. Admiral Sarah Thompson was smaller but had eyes that missed nothing. She had commanded fleets in battles across 3 star systems. Madam President, General Martinez said as they sat down. You look angry. President Chen turned her computer screen around so they could read Elena's message. Both officers read in silence. General Martinez started shaking his head halfway through. Admiral Thompson's eyes grew wide. Are they serious? Admiral Thompson asked. They think we're afraid to fight? Apparently so, President Chen said. Her voice was very quiet, which both officers knew meant she was furious. They think we evolved beyond violence. They think we're peaceful because we choose diplomacy first. General Martinez laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. Peaceful. Right. Tell that to the Martian rebels we fought last year. Tell that to the pirates we hunt in the Outer Rim. They have no idea, Admiral Thompson said. None at all. President Chen stood up and walked to the window. She could see the Washington Monument in the distance. Around its base were the walls covered with names. Millions of names of humans who had died in wars throughout history. General, how many wars has humanity fought in the last 1,000 years? She asked. General Martinez thought for a moment. Major wars? About 200. Minor conflicts and colonial actions? Over 1,000. And before we reach the stars? Thousands more, Madam President. We have records going back 50,000 years. Humans have been fighting since we lived in caves. President Chen nodded slowly. They think we're afraid of war because we try to solve problems with talk first. They don't understand that we do that because we know what war really costs. She turned back to face the 2 officers. I'm going to address the Galactic Council personally. I want you to help me prepare something special. What kind of special? Admiral Thompson asked. An education, President Chen said. I want them to understand exactly what kind of species they just insulted. General Martinez smiled for the first time since entering the office. What do you need from us? Everything. Every war we've ever fought. Every battle. Every weapon we've ever made. I want statistics, numbers, videos, pictures. I want them to see what humans are really like when we stop being diplomatic. Admiral Thompson was already taking notes on her tablet. How much detail do you want? All of it. Start with the ancient wars. Spartans at Thermopylae. Romans conquering Europe. Vikings raiding across the seas. The Mongols conquering Asia. Then move to more recent history. The World Wars. The Colonial Expansion Wars. The Titan Liberation. Everything. General Martinez whistled softly. That's a lot of data, Madam President. The historical archives alone are massive. Good. I want it to be massive. I want them to understand that war isn't something humans fear. War is something humans are very, very good at. President Chen sat back down and opened her calendar on the computer. Schedule an emergency session with the Galactic Council. Full formal address. I want to speak to all of them at once. Her personal assistant came into the office. Madam President, is everything all right? Schedule a meeting with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Also call the Secretary of Defense and the head of Colonial Marine Command. I need to speak with all of them today. The assistant nodded and left quickly. President Chen turned back to the two officers. General, I want you to focus on our land warfare history. Everything from ancient sword fighting to modern plasma weapons. Admiral, you handle naval and space combat. Show them how humans learned to fight on water, in the air, and in space. What about our nuclear weapons? Admiral Thompson asked. Should we mention those? President Chen thought for a moment. Yes, all of them. They need to understand that humans developed weapons that could destroy entire planets. And we've used them. General Martinez looked serious. Madam President, this might change how they see us completely. Are you sure you want to do this? They already see us wrong, President Chen replied. They think we're weak. They think we're afraid. Better they understand what we're really capable of than continue to underestimate us. She stood up again and walked to a wall covered with pictures, photos of human soldiers throughout history. Ancient warriors with swords and shields. Pilots from the world wars. Marines landing on alien worlds. You know what bothers me most about their comment? She said. It's not that they think we're peaceful. Peace is good. It's that they think we're peaceful because we're weak. Because we can't fight. That's a dangerous mistake, Admiral Thompson said. Yes, it is. And I'm going to make sure they understand just how dangerous. President Chen picked up a photo from her desk. It showed her father in his military uniform. He had been a Marine who died fighting pirates near Jupiter. She thought about all the humans who had died in battles across the galaxy, all the families who had lost sons and daughters to war. The Galactic Council thinks humans evolved beyond violence, she said quietly. They're going to learn that humans didn't evolve beyond violence. We just learned to control it. And there's a very big difference. General Martinez and Admiral Thompson left to begin gathering the historical data. President Chen sat alone in her office, already planning what she would say to the aliens who had insulted her species. The Galactic Council was about to discover that calling humans afraid of war was the worst mistake they could possibly make. 3 days later, the Galactic Council chamber was packed. Every species had sent representatives to hear the human president speak. This was unusual. Most species leaders never addressed the council directly. President Sarah Chen appeared as a life-sized hologram at the center of the chamber. She wore her formal military dress uniform, dark blue with gold decorations. Ribbons covered her chest. To the aliens, they were just colorful pieces of cloth. To humans, each ribbon told the story of a battle. A war. A victory won with blood. Behind President Chen, the seal of United Earth glowed brightly. The image showed Earth surrounded by stars, with olive branches for peace and arrows for war. Ambassador Elena sat in the human section, watching the alien faces around her. She could see Chancellor Vorth in his special seat, looking bored. He probably expected another boring diplomatic speech about peace and cooperation. President Chen began to speak. Her voice was calm and clear, but Elena could hear the steel underneath. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, President Chen said. I come before you today to address what I can only call a serious misunderstanding about my species. The chamber grew quiet. Even the constant background noise of alien breathing and movement stopped. 3 days ago, Chancellor Vorth stated that humans fear war. He said this as if it were a well-known fact, as if humans were children afraid of the dark. Chancellor Vorth straightened in his seat. His blue skin grew a little darker, which meant he was becoming uncomfortable. President Chen's voice dropped lower, but somehow it carried perfectly through the chamber. Chancellor Vorth, you could not be more wrong. She gestured with one hand, and the entire chamber's display system activated. Massive screens appeared in the air above every section. The images that appeared made many aliens gasp in shock. Ancient human warriors filled the screens. Greek soldiers with bronze shields and long spears. Roman legions marching in perfect formation. Viking warriors with axes and round shields. Japanese samurai in elaborate armor. Humans do not fear war, Chancellor Vorth. We are war. We have been fighting since before we learned to use metal. While your species were still discovering fire, humans were already perfecting the art of organized violence. The images changed. Medieval knights on horseback charged with lances. Mongol armies swept across vast plains. Aztec warriors fought with obsidian blades. English longbowmen sent arrows into the sky like deadly rain. Many aliens began shifting in their seats. The crystal spider creature made clicking sounds of distress. The metal jellyfish's lights flickered rapidly. You see, honored council, humans did not evolve beyond war. We evolved through war. Every generation was forged in battle. Every advance in our technology came from trying to kill each other more efficiently. President Chen walked closer to Chancellor Vorth's section. We have fought with stones and sticks. We have fought with bronze and iron. We have fought with gunpowder and steel. We have fought with atomic fire and antimatter. End quote. New images appeared. Cannons firing at wooden ships. Soldiers in trenches during World War I. Tanks rolling across battlefields. Fighter planes, dogfighting in the sky. The bloodiest war in your galactic history, the Vegan Centauri conflict, lasted 30 years and killed 50 million beings. Humans call that a medium-sized war. Our Second World War killed 70 million in just 6 years. The numbers appeared on the screens in the writing of every species present. Alien mathematicians began checking the figures on their devices. Shocked sounds came from around the chamber. One battle, Stalingrad, lasted longer than your entire crystalline rebellion. One day, D-Day, saw more violence than most of your species have witnessed in their entire histories. President Chen gestured again, and the images became more recent. Human soldiers fighting on Mars. Space battles around Jupiter. Marines in power armor, storming alien pirate bases. You mistake our diplomacy for weakness. You mistake our restraint for fear. This is not only wrong, it is dangerous. Chancellor Vorth stood up on shaky legs. Surely you exaggerate, he said. No species could be so violent and still reach the stars. President Chen smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. We didn't reach the stars despite our violence, Chancellor. We reached them because of it. War drove our technology. War taught us to work together. War made us strong. She gestured once more, and new images appeared. These showed human weapons. Swords and spears gave way to guns and cannons. Cannons became missiles. Missiles became weapons that could crack planets. We have exactly 47,000 documented ways to kill another human being with nothing but our bare hands. We have written manuals on warfare that fill entire libraries. We have created an art form called military science that studies nothing but how to win battles. The images kept changing, faster now. Tank battles, naval warfare, air combat, space fleet engagements. Each image showed humans getting better at organized violence. We have weapons that can sterilize continents. We have bombs that burn hotter than stars. We have ships designed for nothing but carrying death across the galaxy. Admiral Thompson had done her job well. The presentation showed the evolution of human naval combat, from wooden ships to space dreadnoughts. The progression was terrifying in its efficiency. But here is what you really need to understand, President Chen said, her voice growing quieter but somehow more frightening. All of this, every weapon, every tactic, every strategy, was developed by humans fighting other humans. We spent thousands of years learning to kill each other. She paused and looked directly at Chancellor Vorth. And we got very, very good at it. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the automatic air recycling system seemed to have stopped. So when the pirates attacked our colonies on Proxima, we didn't call for help. We sent the Marines. When the rebels on Titan declared independence, we didn't negotiate. We went to war, and we won, both times. President Chen's voice rose again. Humans don't fear war. Honored Council. War fears us. The images on the screens now showed human military academies, young humans learning strategy and tactics, officers studying the great battles of history, soldiers training with weapons their ancestors would recognize. We study war like your species study mathematics. We remember our battles like you remember your greatest achievements. We honor our warriors like you. Honor your scientists and philosophers. Be saying? President Chen walked back to the center of the chamber. Every human child learns about Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans held off an army of thousands. Every human knows about Agincourt, where English archers destroyed French knights. Every human remembers the Alamo, where brave defenders died rather than surrender. She gestured one final time, and the screens showed something that made many aliens cry out in fear. It was a simple image. Earth itself, covered in monuments and memorials to the war dead. This is what you call a peaceful species, Chancellor Vorth. A world covered in monuments to our warriors. A planet that remembers every battle, every war, every hero who died fighting. The silence in the chamber was total. President Chen looked around at the alien faces, seeing fear where there had been dismissal before. We joined your Galactic Council not because we evolved beyond war. We joined because we finally found opponents worthy of respect. You mistake our choice to be peaceful for an inability to be otherwise. President Chen's image began to fade as the transmission prepared to end, but her final words echoed clearly through the chamber. Remember this well, honored council. The greatest warriors are not those who love war. They are those who are very good at it, but choose peace instead. Humans choose peace. But we are still very, very good at war. The hologram disappeared, leaving the Galactic Council in stunned silence. The silence in the Galactic Council chamber stretched for long minutes after President Chen's hologram disappeared. No one moved. No one spoke. The alien representatives stared at the screens that still showed images of human warfare throughout history. Chancellor Vorth was the first to break the silence. He activated his personal data device and began searching through galactic databases. Other aliens followed his example. Soon the chamber filled with the quiet sounds of electronic beeping and data streams downloading. Ambassador Elena watched as the aliens began to discover the truth. Their translators worked overtime as they accessed human historical records that had been shared with the galactic database years ago. Records that no one had bothered to read carefully until now. The crystal spider creature made a loud clicking sound of alarm. These numbers cannot be correct, it announced. It says here that humans fought something called the 100 Years' War, that actually lasted 116 years, continuously. A floating gas creature in a clear tank pulsed bright orange, which meant extreme distress in its species. I am reading about a human conflict called World War I. It involved 65 million soldiers from 30 countries. The casualties number in the tens of millions. That cannot be right, said Chancellor Vorth, but his voice was not confident anymore. No species fights wars that large. Elena stood up slowly. The entire chamber turned to look at her. She had not asked for permission to speak, which was unusual. But no one tried to stop her. World War I was not our largest war, she said quietly. World War II involved over 100 million military personnel. It was fought on every continent of our planet except Antarctica. We fought in the air, on land, under the ocean, and in space around our moon. The metal jellyfish's lights flashed rapidly. How many died in this World War II? Elena looked at her notes. Total deaths, including civilians, were between 70 and 85 million. We are not entirely sure of the exact number, because the destruction was so complete in some areas. Shocked sounds came from all around the chamber. The Altarian delegation was frantically checking their own military records. Their species' greatest war had lasted 5 years and killed 2 million beings. They had considered it a catastrophe that nearly destroyed their civilization. But those are old wars, Chancellor Vorth said desperately. Primitive conflicts from before you reach the stars. Elena shook her head. The Titan Liberation War happened 15 years ago. Human casualties were 400,000. Enemy casualties were over 2 million. The war lasted 18 months. She paused and looked around the chamber. We won. An alien that looked like a tall tree with eyes began making distressed creaking sounds. I am reading that humans have a philosophical concept called total war. It means using every resource of an entire civilization to destroy the enemy completely. Yes, Elena confirmed. We developed that concept during World War II. We learned how to turn our entire planet into a weapon factory. Every human, from children to the elderly, contributed to the war effort. Chancellor Vorth's skin had turned almost white. You made your children participate in war? We made our children build bombs, Elena said simply. Our teenagers lied about their age to join the military. Our old people grew food to feed the armies. Our scientists worked day and night to create better weapons. When humans fight a total war, everything else stops. The entire species focuses on victory. A small alien that looked like a furry ball with tentacles began vibrating rapidly. What about your Geneva Conventions? Your rules of war? Elena almost smiled. The Geneva Conventions exist because humans needed rules to limit how terrible our wars could become. We created international law to prevent ourselves from being too effective at killing each other. She activated her own data device and brought up a document. Would you like to know what weapons the Geneva Conventions banned? Chemical weapons that dissolve lungs. Biological weapons that cause organs to shut down. Explosive bullets designed to create maximum suffering. Poison gas that burns through protective equipment. The chamber grew even quieter, if that was possible. We didn't ban these weapons because we couldn't make them, Elena continued. We banned them because we made them too well. We created weapons so horrible that even humans decided they were too cruel to use. Alder's laugh. Chancellor Vorth accessed more data files. His expression grew more alarmed as he read. It says here that humans developed nuclear weapons and used them in warfare. Against other humans. Twice, Elena confirmed. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We dropped atomic bombs on 2 cities to end World War II. Over 200,000 people died in seconds. The tree aliens' creaking became louder. You destroyed your own cities? They were enemy cities, Elena said. And it worked. The war ended immediately. Sometimes the fastest way to achieve peace is to demonstrate the cost of continuing to fight. A new voice joined the conversation. It came from an alien that had not spoken before. Something that looked like a snake made of living metal. How many nuclear weapons do humans currently possess? Elena checked her notes. That information is classified. But I can tell you that we have enough to sterilize every inhabited planet in this sector of the galaxy. The snake alien coiled back in alarm. You still build weapons of mass destruction? We maintain them, Elena corrected. We learned during the Cold War that the best way to prevent nuclear war is to be ready to fight one. When everyone knows you can destroy them completely, they become much more interested in peaceful solutions. Chancellor Vorth was reading faster now, his 4 hands moving rapidly across his device. I am seeing records of something called mutually assured destruction. You deliberately created a situation where war would end your civilization? And it worked, Elena said. The Cold War lasted 50 years with no major battles between the superpowers. The threat of total destruction kept everyone peaceful. An alien that looked like a giant butterfly with metal wings fluttered nervously. This is madness. No rational species would build weapons capable of destroying themselves. Elena looked directly at the butterfly alien. Rationality is why we built them. If your enemy knows you are willing to destroy everything rather than lose, they become much more willing to negotiate. She stood up straighter. This is what President Chen was trying to explain. Humans don't fear war because we understand it completely. We know exactly how terrible it can become. We know exactly what it costs. The chamber filled with the sounds of aliens frantically accessing more human historical data. Every new file they opened revealed more conflicts, more weapons, more evidence of humanity's mastery of warfare. Your species fought wars for sport, said the crystal spider, its voice filled with disbelief. Gladiator games, tournaments, trial by combat. We turned fighting into entertainment, Elena agreed. We still do. Human children play war games for fun. Our literature celebrates warriors and battles. Our movies and video games let people experience combat safely. Chancellor Vorth looked up from his device. His expression had changed completely. The dismissive arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked like fear. How many wars has humanity fought in total? He asked quietly. Elena consulted her notes one more time. Major wars number in the hundreds. Minor conflicts and colonial actions reach into the thousands. If you count every recorded battle in human history, the number exceeds 50,000 separate engagements. She paused and looked around the chamber at the shocked alien faces. And that's just what we've recorded. Human warfare is so common that we only bother to write down the important battles. The reality was finally sinking in. The Galactic Council had not just insulted a peaceful species, they had insulted the most warlike species in known galactic history, and that species was sitting quietly in their council chamber, taking notes. The Galactic Council chamber remained in chaos for hours after Ambassador Elena finished speaking. Aliens huddled in small groups, sharing data and discussing what they had learned about humanity. The normal business of the council was completely forgotten. Chancellor Vorth sat alone in his section, staring at his data device. He had spent the last hour reading about human military history. The more he learned, the more uncomfortable he became. His blue skin had turned almost gray with stress. Ambassador Elena watched it all from the human section. Her secure communication device had been buzzing constantly with messages from other species' ambassadors. She had not answered any of them yet. The first formal request came from the Zephyrian Empire. Their ambassador, a tall creature with scales and multiple eyes, approached the human section carefully. Its translator spoke in very polite tones. Ambassador Vasquez, the Zephyrian Empire would like to request a private meeting. We wish to discuss our current conflict with the crystallines. Elena looked up from her notes. What kind of discussion? We would like to ask for human advice on ending the war quickly. We believe your species may have useful experience in such matters. Before Elena could respond, the crystalline ambassador joined them. This being looked like living crystal in a roughly human shape. When it spoke, its voice rang like bells. The Crystalline Confederation also requests human assistance. We wish to negotiate a peaceful end to hostilities. Elena looked between the two aliens who had been trying to kill each other for months. Now they both wanted human help to stop fighting. I will pass your requests to my government, she said diplomatically. More ambassadors began approaching. The Altarian delegation sent a junior diplomat. The metal jellyfish aliens requested a formal audience. Even species that had never spoken to humans before suddenly wanted meetings. Elena's communication device buzzed again. This message was from Earth, from President Chen herself. Status report requested. How are they reacting? Elena typed back quickly. Complete change in attitude. Multiple requests for military consultation. They're scared. The response came back within minutes. Good. Make them wait. Fear leads to respect. Respect leads to peace. By the end of the day, Elena had received formal diplomatic requests from 18 different species. They all wanted the same thing. They wanted to make sure humans would never be their enemy. The next morning brought even more changes. Chancellor Vorth appeared at the human delegation's temporary office. He came alone, without his usual group of assistants and guards. When Elena's aide let him in, he looked tired and worried. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said, sitting down heavily in the chair across from her desk. "I owe you an apology." Elena said nothing. She waited for him to continue. "I made a serious error in judgment about your species. I spoke without proper knowledge. In my culture, this is considered a grave mistake." "In my culture," Elena replied calmly, "it's considered an insult." Chancellor Vorth's skin darkened further. "Yes, I understand that now. I have spent 2 days reading about human military history. I had no idea." He activated his data device and showed Elena his screen. It displayed a graph comparing military casualties across different galactic conflicts. Human wars dominated the chart completely. "Your Battle of Gettysburg had more casualties than our species' entire military has ever suffered in all conflicts combined," he said quietly. "And that was just one battle. In one war." Elena nodded. "It was considered a medium-sized battle by our standards." Chancellor Vorth was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was very careful. "The Altarian hegemony would like to propose a formal alliance with humanity. We believe our species could benefit from closer cooperation." "What kind of cooperation?" Elena asked. "Military advice. Strategic consultation. Perhaps joint training exercises." He paused. "We would also like to purchase some of your older military equipment. For defensive purposes only, of course." Elena almost smiled. 3 days ago, Chancellor Vorth had called humans afraid of war. Now he wanted to buy human weapons. "I will discuss your proposal with my government," she said. Over the next week, the political landscape of the galaxy shifted completely. Species that had ignored humanity suddenly sent ambassadors to Earth. Trade agreements that had been stalled for months were suddenly approved. Several alien governments offered to share advanced technology in exchange for military cooperation. The Zephyrian Crystalline War ended within days. Both sides agreed to human-mediated negotiations rather than continue fighting. Neither species wanted to be on the wrong side of a conflict that might draw human attention. Ambassador Elena found herself in the unusual position of being the most popular diplomat in the galaxy. Her schedule filled with meetings, negotiations, and treaty discussions. Species that had never bothered to learn human names were suddenly very interested in human culture and history. The change was most obvious in the council chamber itself. When Elena walked in for the weekly session, conversations stopped. Aliens that had barely acknowledged her presence before now nodded respectfully. Her seating assignment was quietly moved from the back of the chamber to a place of honor near the center. President Chen called for a status report at the end of the week. "How are our relationships with other species?" she asked, over the secure video link. Elena looked at her notes. "Dramatically improved, Madam President. We have received requests for military cooperation from over 30 species. Trade negotiations are proceeding rapidly. Several governments have offered technology exchanges. And the insults? No one questions human resolve anymore. If anything, they may be slightly afraid of us now." President Chen nodded approvingly. "Fear is not the goal, but respect is necessary. Are they treating you better?" "Much better." Chancellor Vorth personally apologized and requested an alliance. "The Galactic Council has invited humanity to join the Security Committee. The Security Committee handles major conflicts between species," President Chen noted. "That's quite an honor for such a young member." Elena smiled. "They said they value our unique expertise in conflict resolution." Elena smiled. "They said they value our unique expertise," President Chen laughed. "I suppose we do have experience in that area. Accept the committee position, but make it clear that humans prefer peaceful solutions. We may be good at war, but we'd rather avoid it." "Understood, Madam President." After the call ended, Elena sat in her office thinking about how much had changed. A week ago, Aliens had dismissed humanity as weak and fearful. Now they wanted human protection, human weapons, and human military advice. The irony was not lost on her. Humans had joined the Galactic Council, hoping to learn from older, wiser species. Instead, they had ended up teaching lessons about power, respect, and the difference between choosing peace and being forced to accept it. Her aide knocked and entered with another stack of diplomatic requests. Ambassador. The Andromedan Trade Federation wants to discuss joint military exercises. The Spiral Arm Alliance is asking about human military academies. And he paused, checking his notes. The Peaceful Worlds Coalition wants to hire human security consultants. Elena took the requests and began reading through them. Tomorrow she would meet with representatives from 6 different species, all wanting the same thing. They wanted to be on humanity's good side. It was amazing how quickly political attitudes could change when people realized they had underestimated their neighbors. The galaxy was learning that humans were not the weakest species in the council. They might very well be the strongest. And the smartest thing to do with strong neighbors was to be their friends, not their enemies. The Galactic Council had called humans afraid of war. Now the galaxy knew better. Humans weren't afraid of war. They were just very good at choosing when not to fight. But when they did choose to fight, they won.